excited to get started tonight with you. Thank you for joining us for our second session of Grit. This week we will be talking about chapters 6 through 9. So I hope everyone has had a chance to read at least the study notes on that. A couple of housekeeping things in the chat box. If you can list your first name and last name and what school district your students reside in, whether they go to a charter or not, what district boundaries are you in, or the school name if you would like to do that. Also, this is a parent book study, so we may have some educators on here, but tonight we're going to be talking about items, and we want us to look at that through a parent's lens. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't use some of those things in classrooms, but the main focus is through a parent's lens tonight. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Advance. You can do the next one. So question number 1. So for chapter 6, we're talking about interest. So question number 1 is, do you think passion is necessary to have a happy or successful career? This is an interesting question to me. For those of you that are new joining us, sorry, I should have done this through housekeeping. We will post the question. Amy and I will be talking about the question, and you guys will be entering in the chat box a discussion. And then we have Leah Voorhees and Ellen Bailey here with us tonight that will help with the chat, because we found out last week Amy and I don't keep up with the chat very well trying to do the questions. So we've enlisted help with that. So thank you. So passion, necessary to have a happy or successful career. So both of my boys are older. They're grown and out of the home right now. I say that right now because periodically the younger one comes back for a month or two. So I don't know that he's really out of the home yet, but we're working on it. But we've had this discussion about jobs. And I've kind of explained to them that they're in the job right now, not really the career, right? So the job to me is kind of like the jobs that you did when you were going through school or till you found something. So I don't know that with a job there has to be passion. But I feel like in the career, I feel like, for me at least, I feel like passion really has driven my career. What do you think?
I think passion helps a lot. I think you have to find a passion that you can make a living at, though, and be realistic about that part of it. But I think it helps a lot. And I think as a parent, it helps to listen to the example she gives of letting someone develop their own passion and go their own way, like Jeff Bezos in the book. But I don't think it's necessary. I think you can do a job and enjoy your coworkers and enjoy your paycheck and kind of just go along if you choose to. But I think passion makes it a lot more meaningful and a lot more.
Okay.
So you put more into it.
So Elizabeth has said, for happiness, yes. Successful, maybe not as much. I kind of like that comment because I feel like, maybe it's not a goal to be successful, or maybe your happiness is your success, right? Within that. So there's lots of ways that you can kind of look at this a little bit. I just know, so jobs I've had putting myself through school, and even back in high school, let's just say I drove a combine. Okay. I don't know that I was very, that wasn't a passion of mine.
But didn't doing that kind of job make you realize how great I cleaned offices, so I was cleaning bathrooms and toilets and emptying garbages. So that I think it's maybe good to have one of those jobs where you realize how much better you are at a better one.
Absolutely. This is not what I want to do, so I need to find what I want to do. But then I want to ask this too, because I feel like the tides are changing a little bit. I'm becoming old. Let's just point that out. And I feel like the kids of today, or my younger coworkers, they don't stay in the same job or the same career.
No, they don't.
For very long. But they seem to have a lot of passion.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know how that balances out. Like I said, I'm old school, so I'm one of those ones that I've been in education from the very beginning, right? As my career. Now my career has molded itself over the years as my passion has changed.
Right.
But yeah, I wonder how a 20-something or even a 30-something would maybe answer that question.
Is anyone younger that's in the book study?
I think
to answer that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's okay. I'm the old one. It's all good. Oh, Kylie, I like your comment. I think Angela does a good job covering this topic. You need to develop passion and interest and then progress from job to career calling. And I would agree with that.
That you have to progress.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I like to Elizabeth Lemley. She says, I think we need to make sure our kids don't think they have to feel passionately about their starting jobs. You have to start somewhere, and you may not have passion for it, but it may lead you to work for what you are passionate about.
Right.
That's
and that kind of goes back to what I was that conversation with my 25-year-old where, he's just working a job, right, versus a career. And he kind of had, the whole thing was he kind of had a blow up at his job. And I'm like, yeah, you can't really do that. He's like, well, it's not fair. And I said, but it kind of is. You're not in a place where you can make all of these demands, right?
Right.
Because that's not part of what you are all about. That's not your role right now.
Well, and Heidi said I worked in the mall in high school, which helped me realize that majoring in business was not the right choice for me. And I think that's, that's one of those things. And I know that she talks about just discovering and trying things and seeing how they are for you.
Absolutely. So. And I think it changes course. Like my whole career. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, and that's where I started. But as my passion changed a little bit
as you went,
and I developed different talents as I went along. So
right, that's important too.
Oh, Cynthia, I like your comment. Passion helps you feel satisfied and stay with your career. Absolutely. But then again, I wonder how that works for the younger generation. Do their passions change?
Well, or maybe they're younger and so they're still finding their way, and they're on a sidetrack and they're going to find it and they're going to, because I was doing something completely different in my 20s and 30s than now. So
right, and they say as you find a job that you're enjoying, that within that, by searching for the nuances within your job, you can develop that passion.
Absolutely.
So that's something to think about too.
Right, and she talks a lot about development and diving deeper and learning more, which I feel like I'm constantly doing in my job still.
Right. Dana brings up a great thought too. Our disabled son's emotions are honest and raw. He is not happy when doing his job if he doesn't enjoy it. I think that's true with anybody, right? We're not happy with our jobs unless we enjoy it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and again, a parent reiterated that with her son, if we remember that we don't have to have passion in everything we do right away, we can be open to experiencing experiences that will help us find that passion. So that idea of discovering and letting it be a process is really important.
Right, and not discouraging your kids from what might sound like a weird track that could really lead to something.
Right.
Let them develop it. That's hard to do as a parent.
Okay, should we go on to question number 2?
Absolutely.
In that chapter? Do you want to read that, or do you want me to?
I can. What do you make of the formula that passion is built through discovery, development, and then deepening?
And I kind of feel we've been talking about that, right?
We have a little bit.
Yeah, we have. Kind of hit that idea of searching for the nuances.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting one because she even had detours in hers. And we had a training here on Saturday that I attended. I attended as an attendee, not as a presenter. And we talked about like, go to the college and take a class. Just one and see what you're interested in and see if that sparks something for you. That we don't have to throw everything into it and decide right now and, you know, I'm going to major in this and I'm going to spend thousands of dollars on it. And then if I change course, I'm going to be more in debt with student loans, you know?
Right.
So I thought it was a good, you know, go try something and see how you think about it. Evelyn says, and what a wonderful thing, the process of discovering what you are and are not passionate about. I think we can remember that we don't have to be passionate about everything, have passion in everything we do right away. We can be open to experiences that help us find that passion. And I love that. Like being open to those experiences is such a good thing.
Yeah. I think that the formula, like Evelyn said, I hadn't thought of it before, but it does make perfect sense, right? Like you discover, you try different things out. And I think that's where maybe I get frustrated with my own children a little bit because I feel like, oh, you're at this age and you haven't done X, Y, and Z, but
Right.
you know, who's to say it's on their timeline, not mine.
Right. And that's hard as a parent, I think.
It is. It's very hard. I was one who knew exactly what I wanted and never wavered from that. And it's hard for me to have two boys who don't really know what they want yet.
Yes.
And then my ex-husband, let's just say I put him through 4 different things, 4 different areas he tried in college. He would get almost through one program and then say, I don't think I like this. I'm going to try something else. And it took 4 times before one, I put my foot down. I just said, I can't do this anymore. Like, you got to make up your mind. And, you know, I pushed him because even in that 5th one that he did, he came to me and said, again, we're a semester away from graduation. And he goes, I don't really want to do this. And I said, but you are going to do it. You're going to do it. And you owe me at least 2 years of trying it. And then we'll talk. Yeah. And then we'll decide if that's not really working for you. And to be honest, he has stayed in that profession ever since then. He did actually come back and thank me, which was good.
Well, and it's already changing the way I parent. Like, I got a flyer for an open house at the Jordan Assistive Technology Center. And it's on a cold night, and I probably don't want to go out. But having read this book and realizing that I can expose my 17-year-old to all these different things they offer in person, and I can back out and I don't have to talk about it, and he can go talk to each of them. I realized through reading this book, that's probably a really important activity for me to take him to. So if it sparks something, right, he can go with that. Because right now he says, I like science and I like art, which is great. It's a good start, but it's like, okay, what are we going to do with that? What are we going to develop that into if that's what we're going to do? So anyway, it's changed the way I parent already because I'm like, I need to give them just those opportunities, just exposures to different areas they could be in and they could do. So I looked at it and thought about the book and thought, I better take him.
Kylie made a comment. I think this is why they had the chapter on having an overarching life purpose. Once you define that for yourself, then you can change your lower level goals, which I don't know that we've gotten to that one yet, but absolutely.
That's
Kylie.
Coming up. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have all of those. Okay.
We'll go to the next one.
Yeah. Okay, so chapter 7 is about practice. And question number 3 is, what distinguishes deliberate practice from other kinds of practice? And again, I think that if you're thinking about careers and life and what you want to do, it really is about, trying out different things. Like you said, different experiences. I think if you find something and you deliberately practice with it, you get better at it. You find more of a passion for it. An example from my own life, I used to draw, sketch, paint all through high school, took all the art classes I could find, got to college, took one oil painting class. Was it oil painting? I can't remember, but a painting class. I remember if it was acrylic or oil. I'll be honest, the professor scared me. So it kind of overwhelmed me a little bit. I loved it. I mean, it was my getaway. It's everything I did. I put everything into it. I had that experience, with the painting. He was a great professor, but he would come and we would always have these still lifes that we were painting, and he would just take the paintbrush out of people's hands and come and paint it the way he saw it. And I'm like, but that's not the way that they're looking at it. So I kind of stepped back from it a while, and kind of life happens, and I just didn't really make the time for it. So now, as I've gotten older, my kids growing up, I got a really nice camera. I got a couple digital cameras, and then I bought a really nice DSL camera, which is digital as well. But I got into photography. And so that really took the place of my painting and my drawing. I just feel like it's a different avenue that I'm using that. So I have a new lens. It's kind of kicking my butt, but I'm not deliberately going out and practicing. Right. And I think there is a difference. I need to get better at that, but I need to make that practice deliberate.
Right.
And that's different than just practicing, just taking. And it's hard because, I have my camera on my phone, and so I'm always taking pictures, but not with my new lens. And so that's kind of how I equated that.
Right.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, again, for me, it changed the way I parent. So I have a 10-year-old, and she turned on YouTube, and she was drawing an eyeball, like just a really pretty eye, not just eyeball. And she was getting mad because she could not make it look like the one on the screen. But she's 10, and she made a gorgeous eyeball, actually. It really looked good. This eye that she drew, I shouldn't say eyeball. But I feel like that was her deliberate practice, where she was getting really frustrated and pushing herself. And I kept saying, "You're okay, breathe." Then another night, she had spelling to do, and I had read this chapter. And I said, "Well, let's do spelling." And I looked over, and she was freehand drawing two fairies. And I have one of them in my office. And they were gorgeous. And she was calm, and she was relaxed. And I looked at her, and I went, "I think she's in flow. I'm going to just walk away. We can do spelling another night." And it changed, like just reading this chapter, I would have probably before this said, "You need to do spelling. You can pick that up later. You can always draw anytime, honey." But seeing that she was doing this, and she was she spent like 4 hours. She sat quietly for 4 hours drawing, and then she colored them, and she gave one to my husband and one to me. And I was like, wow. So it changed it already changed how I parent and how I think about it. And, and I'm watching myself. What am I deliberately practicing in? What am I improving in? What are my goals? Like, am I trying to get better at workshops? Am I trying to do this? And if I am, what are those goals? And like being more deliberate about it, but also letting my kids.
I love Diana's comment in here is deliberate practice irons out the kinks. And it does, right? Absolutely. I mean, you can't be, the jazz game is going on over here in a couple of hours. You can't be a good basketball player unless you deliberately practice.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a difference.
And I've noticed a difference. Like, I've done physical therapy before for something that's hurt, but now my physical therapy right now is so I can walk. Oh, I'm very deliberate, and I'm because I'm like, I need to walk. I need to get out of this boot. I need to get off these crutches.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, I was lazy before in physical therapy when it was just like a hurt arm or something, or I'm just having some pain. Yeah, it's very deliberate now because I need to walk.
It's the end to the means. Right?
It is right now.
I'm just reading a few of these. Oh, Kylie, yes. I like your thought too. I like how Angela talks about deliberate practice includes setting stretching goals.
Oh, yes.
So getting out of our comfort zone a little bit, and having, and that's where that grit comes in, to stretch yourself and to stick with it. I need to really work on that with my diet, but just not there yet. Still working on that.
I think we all have to arrive at things at our own time and space.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever arrive at that, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. Well, then the next question there
but
ties right in.
one
go
more
ahead.
from Diana. I
Okay.
like what was said, until conscious incompetence becomes unconscious competence.
Where
right?
you're just flowing with it.
Yes.
And that actually leads right into it, because the next question is, do you believe deliberate practice and flow are incompatible? So we're still talking about that. And it was interesting how she talked in the book about how she had the two, I can't call their names up right now, but the two experts in those came and they just talked, and it was like two separate presentations. And then she was frustrated because she didn't get the answer. Do you believe they're incompatible? And then she finally decided that deliberate practice leads to flow. Like, it's that perfect ice skating performance where you can tell they're just in the zone, and they're not aware of the audience or anything else, and they're doing what they've done a million times, and their body just has that muscle memory, and they just go with it. So I don't think they're incompatible. I think they go along with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I don't think you always choose when you're in flow.
No.
I think sometimes you don't get to choose as much as it might help. What does everyone else think?
So Terry Madsen, I have loved watching a friend become more deliberate in her goals, as she is now a force to be reckoned with in anything she tries now. Love that. Yeah, you guys are, the chat is really awesome. Okay, I'm just trying to catch up to the
I'm going to just go with something the author said, where she points out that when she was giving the first, the second, and the third piece was self-awareness without judgment is part of this process of practice. Enjoying the challenge, but making sure that's emotionally, you are able to have emotionally free mistakes.
Right, that you're okay with the mistakes.
That's okay.
Yeah. Emotionally free mistakes. That's a good way.
Free mistakes.
I like that. Yeah.
Well,
that's another
It's a great
t-shirt.
practice with kids too, right?
Yes, it is great.
Yeah.
I have one that wants everything to go perfect the first time, in which it doesn't. She gets mad. I have to say, keep trying, you're okay.
I know. That's a hard thing with students though, right? With kids. They always want that. Well, and adults as well.
Yeah. And I think some kids do struggle with that. They're perfectionists, and they're that type A, and they just want to get it
right
exactly right the first time.
Yeah. I've had that as well.
Yeah, not judging yourself. Heidi says, I find that the most challenging, not judging myself while I'm learning. Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And in fact, looking back to see where you went wrong, or teaching kids, especially with math, I think like if my daughter gets one wrong, we don't just erase and redo it. Right. We go through it again and say, oh, look, it was such a simple mistake. It's right there. And if we don't do that and go through it and look, then she doesn't learn that, oh, that's an easy mistake I make. Maybe I should check for it.
But that comes back to an earlier discussion of really looking and valuing mistakes.
Right.
Look, and as we've discussed before, we live in such a performance culture that we look only at the end result. We don't look at all of the deliberate practice and the failings that go on before. We just see the shiny performance. Right. With everything.
And we celebrate those. I know my father's an educator, or my father-in-law, and he's passed now, but he would make a mistake on the board and he'd say, kids, that's the first mistake I ever made. Mm-hmm. Or he'd say, oh, I'm so angry I could crush a grape. And he was modeling for them that, hey, mistakes are okay, and I've made mistakes.
Absolutely.
And he was very, very sweet about it. Very good at teaching that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing, though, as a parent, because we don't want our kids to make mistakes, right?
Right.
We don't
Especially painful ones.
Right. We don't want them to hurt. So it's kind of that fine line that we walk. And I think I said something about this last week, too, that we kind of need to teach them, I say how to fail, but how to make a mistake and how to get yourself back up out of it when the price is small. right? When we are there to help and guide them through it, not when they're older and the price is much heavier.
And Diana Barber said it's like Love and Logic, and that's exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's the helicopter parent versus
Love and Logic. Haven't heard that for a while.
Yeah. Oh, I still study Love and Logic. Kylie says, I want my kids to make a mistake. I just want them to handle it in a healthy manner. Yeah, and that's true. That's something we have to model for them.
I was going to say, yeah, but for them to do that, we have to teach that. And this is something I say with my family members. I wonder if that's why I'm not invited to some of the Sunday dinners anymore, because I try to teach them too much. I have younger cousins with younger families, and I'm always telling them all of this stuff, but we have to teach the outcomes that we want, right? So we have to teach them how to fail, how to make a mistake and work themselves through it.
So if I don't want to get invited, that's what I should start.
That's what you do.
That's my way.
You just start telling them how to raise their kids.
That's funny.
And then you won't go anywhere.
I forwarded to the next one. Are we ready?
Great.
I didn't even mean to, but there we are.
You're fine. So chapter 8 is on purpose. And question number 5 says, consider the parable of the bricklayers, which is on page 149. Is it possible for everyone to treat his or her job like a calling? I had to really think about that. Do you remember the parable of the bricklayers? Let's maybe go over that.
That's a good idea.
Really quickly. I know I have it.
149.
Really?
Yep, page 149.
So there were 3 bricklayers, and they were asked, what are you doing? The first one says, I'm laying bricks. The second one says, I'm building a church. And the third one says, I am building the house of God. So the first bricklayer has a job, the second has a career, and the third has a calling. So if we look at our jobs, or if our students, or if our kids look at whatever they're involved with or whatever, do you think it's possible for everyone to treat their job like it's a calling?
I thought about it. I think it's possible. But earlier on in my husband's career, he had a job he didn't believe in so much. And I need to be careful, but he worked for a credit card company, and they would talk about how to get more money from people and get them further in debt. He really didn't feel good about it. And now he's at a nonprofit, and he feels great about it. So I think you have to feel innately good about it for it to become a calling. But as long as you're in something that doesn't go against your morals, or you don't have that itch like, oh, this isn't quite right, I'm not very comfortable here, I think at that point every job could become a calling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that some of the passion talk that we've talked about kind of plays into that as well?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, so I'm an educator. And I feel like at the beginning of my career, it was a job. It got me out of my in-laws' basement, happy to have a paycheck. It was a job. But over the years, I developed, I don't know if you want to call them talents or whatever, but my talents and my passion shaped and formed, and now I really feel like my job is a calling. I really do feel that way. Like the passion is so great for me to get students to do mathematics, students with disabilities, to have that equity, to have access to mathematics, and that they can do mathematics. And really, I do feel like it's a calling. So I feel like you can.
Yeah, I feel like you can definitely build it into that. So I agree.
Okay, so a couple of comments. I think so if it fits in with their beliefs and values.
And Elizabeth says, I personally can become passionate about whatever I'm doing, but I am more interested in spending my time helping others and improving the world. And that's what the author said, that one of the biggest themes is contributing to the well-being of others, and that we feel that way.
Right.
And I do feel that way about my job now. But in my job, since I work here at the Utah Parent Center and I'm helping other parents, it's a parent-to-parent model. So I also have children that have disabilities. And everything I learn benefits my kids because I'm learning it. And one of the biggest things I learned when I first came here was self-determination and letting them go their own way, and also not overdoing their what you accommodate them with so that they can learn and grow. But that was one of the biggest things I learned when I first came here, was to let go. And they may have a disability, but that doesn't mean they can't self-direct their life.
Absolutely.
And that was something before I worked here that I don't think I really truly, and he was younger, but I don't think I really truly understood it.
So I like Diana's comment. Grit can fit here by providing the impetus to move from something that could only be a job to something worthwhile and soul satisfying that could be a calling, whether that thing is the same thing or something different. And I feel like that's what's happened
with yours.
For me personally.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, that you can use that grit to keep digging further and learning more and becoming more in depth with your job that you have.
Well, and I think it stems back, to be honest, and I think I shared this story last week, in that I was told by my high school counselor that, one, I would not graduate from BYU, which I did graduate from BYU, and two, I would not graduate from any college, and that I should just go find a job to do. And those were her exact words: go find a job to do. And I'm like, yeah, no, not going to happen. So I think that passion, because is all wrapped up into that grit and all of that, being told that I couldn't do something. And it was something that I really wanted to do. I mean, I really have never wanted to do anything else. And so, yeah, I just think it has turned into a calling for me.
Yeah, and I feel lucky that mine's a calling, and I feel lucky that my husband's is a calling now. He raises funds for children's hospitals.
Love
so
that.
He has a calling too, and we're the nonprofit couple. We both work at nonprofits.
Well, and I do think that we have to look at that word calling maybe a little bit differently than, because of the
outcome.
The faith in this that's predominant in this state. I don't know that it's
that kind of calling.
Yeah, I don't know that it's like a church calling kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just
But in the example, the three men were doing the exact same job.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of it, is they were doing the exact same thing,
and
but
they looked at it very
differently.
Yeah,
and it's a daily thing. When you're tired or worn down, do you come to work and look at it like a calling?
And I have to say, I have worked with people that and I probably still work with people that it's a job, it's not a calling for them. And you can see that in their work and whatnot.
And maybe the calling is in another area of their life.
Right.
Maybe
absolutely.
the job isn't it, but the family or the
absolutely.
something else is their calling, and it's not necessarily bringing in income, but it's the calling.
But I do think it's all intertwined all around with grit and passion.
But Angela says this, so no matter what your job is, she says, how does what I do, ask yourself, how does what I do connect to other people or a greater purpose? So you can usually find it in what you're doing.
Right.
It's really something that you have to seek after.
And she used that example, and I don't know the page, sorry, of the couple that had a cleaning business. And they absolutely turned it into a calling.
Right. I mean, something that may seem mundane.
Something that I rejected as a high schooler and said, I don't want to do this. They really did.
And they
helped their employees. They helped the building people. They listed all the people they were connected to that they helped with this job. And they did exactly that. They were connecting it to, we have all these employees that we pay, and we, all these things that we do. So, yeah.
Okay, so question 6. Let's go to 6 on this same topic. Do you want to do that one?
What social forces prevent or encourage that possibility? Now, some jobs are looked down on. I remember just reading an anecdotal thing about, you don't want to be like that bricklayer there. You guys study harder, or you can't go to college, and you're going to end up like them. But that bricklayer may own the whole company and employ a lot of people, and he probably makes a ton of money. Like, I think some jobs are looked down on, and they shouldn't be, like more trade jobs you do with your hands. And I was watching a show on, okay, if you go into something where you learn on the job. You get paid while you learn. Like if you go into HVAC or something like that, if you go to college, you're paying to learn. If you go into something like that, you're getting paid to learn. So do we look down on those jobs when they're just as important and when they take just as much skill as something you go to college to do?
Right.
So I think that's part of, the social forces that we try to categorize jobs when we shouldn't.
And I think I did that as a young person growing up. My mother drove a school bus, and I kept thinking, why is this all that you're doing? Like, you're only a school bus driver. But you know what? She had such joy and such passion to get those kids to and from safely, wherever she took them, field trips or just to school and back. She loved it.
Right.
So that was her passion.
And she was keeping children safe. Like
absolutely.
A school bus driver is very important when you put your child on a bus, to think that they're there to keep your child safe. And if something happens, often they step up. And
I love what Diana had to say. She says, I feel like I'm moving beyond proving myself to others. I'm learning to prove myself to myself while giving value to others. And I thought, that's so powerful in a workplace, of course, because, having a good self-esteem is always a good thing. And it's it can be something that others, feed off of and encourages that synergy that you need. But I also thought how important it is with our own children that we're modeling that we value ourselves and we're proving ourselves to ourselves, but we're not constantly comparing ourselves with others, but trying to better ourselves.
Right. Compare you to you and your own improvement.
So that kind of leads into Heidi's comment that I think social media and pull quotes can affect our mentality and view about what constitutes a calling.
That's true.
Because think about social media. So I enjoy social media. I don't tweet as much as I do, but I have separate things. So I have what's the other one called? I have Instagram. I follow mostly food people and photographers on Instagram. On my Twitter account, I follow mostly education people. And then on Facebook, it's friends and family.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I've compartmentalized without realizing that I compartmentalized doing that. But I had an interesting conversation at Christmas with one of my cousins, and she said she had to get off. She was taking a social media break. And I was curious to hear why. And she said, because I'm tired of comparing myself to others all the time.
Oh.
Which I thought, well, gosh, I have all this social media. I get upset when my cookies don't turn out as pretty as the picture on social media, but the taste was great. So yeah, I think it's all in how you look at it and how you use it. But I do think it plays a big part with our children.
I do too.
Because we did not have that growing up.
No, we didn't. And they have a whole bunch more. Mickey said our bus driver for our son's first special needs preschool was such a special person. She had unlimited patience. I watched her handle children on all different levels with love and respect. And that's a hard job. You're actually out of the building and with less support than you have in the building.
Absolutely.
And for a parent to put their child on that bus is,
yep.
You want to see that. You want to feel like that's there.
Okay, I have to say I probably didn't like my mother being a bus driver because I lived in a very small town, so she parked the school bus at our house on our property, and it was my job to wash and clean out the bus every weekend. So that's probably more why I didn't like her being a bus driver.
I really like that Heidi touched on poverty. She said, I think poverty is a complicated topic. One of the scientists in the next chapter touches on that and how it affects the brain. So sometimes I don't think grit gets developed because of factors
out
of our control. And I think that's important. If we're facing special circumstances like that,
absolutely,
it does make a difference. And it might be a different kind of grit to get through an experience like that than to being the top performer, because she talks a lot about top performers,
right?
And that kind of almost I wanted her to talk a little bit about mediocrity. I mean, just because the book is so much about the top people and the top performers, and I felt like, if I don't make a name out there,
Well, I do think her in the research world, and Leah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that her research is still fairly new. Like in the research sense.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's extensive, and it's being revalidated.
Right.
Well, and she also starts with research from eons ago. I mean, she has in the beginning Darwin and the cousin. I forgot the cousin's name, but and he was a plotter. He was slower at stuff, and I mean, she has a lot that she's based it on that's from eons ago, which is interesting too.
Yeah, but it is interesting that her choice that those are, and I think she is showing us the exemplars, right? The better examples, the better examples.
But I think that one of the really good points here is Dana says, yes, Mickey, I so appreciate those who work with our son. Most don't have college degrees. And I think that social forces that could encourage that, I think some people really have a calling that other people would look from the outside and judge that and not think they do. But I think doing it for yourself is a great concept.
Absolutely. And that's why we have that passion chapter and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, once we finish the book, we'll see how all of these pieces fit together.
I like the last section.
Yeah, we kind of still are talking just about different pieces with it.
Yeah.
Okay, should we go to chapter 9?
Let's do. We have 3 questions there.
That clock is a little off, so I'm going by the one.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's not. We're not quite that. Okay. Do you want to do it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so chapter 9 is on hope. So question number 7 is, what distinguishes a growth mindset from a fixed mindset?
Such a good question.
It is a good question.
And I love the growth mindset aspect of it. I think for me, it's believing that with effort, you can improve. Instead of that, oh, I got it wrong, I'm stupid. That, oh, dumb me. It's okay, what did I do wrong? And how can I do that next time? And how can I get around it?
Right.
What can I do? Asking all those questions.
I kind of go back to an example that I've used many times in different settings of my 2 kids. I have 2 boys. They are 29 and 25. And the 29-year-old, if an assignment was 5 minutes late, this was very early, even in elementary, all the way through even college now. If it was 5 minutes late, and I'm not exaggerating, I mean, seriously, if it was 5 minutes late, he would not turn it in. He'd throw it in the garbage.
Oh, goodness.
Now, the other one, because my saying at home was, some points are better than no points, right? Like, let's get some points rather than just throwing all of our points away. So my youngest son was every teacher's nightmare because he would come in with, a backpack full of assignments on the last day of grading period, right? So those are the 2 extremes. I think, a fixed mindset, oh, I'm late, I can't do it, I'm not going to do it, to, well, some points is better than no points, right?
Right.
So I'm going to turn in all of these, even though 95% of them aren't even done. I'm going to hand it
right, kind of get some credit where you can.
Right.
Yeah, and Angela said our efforts can improve our future, and that's a belief that we can keep honing in on those skills. And what a great thing! How horrible would it be if we were stagnant? If you hit a certain age and you were stagnant, that'd be really sad.
Yeah. So Lenore, she had a training meeting once where a woman, well-meaning, said if you don't teach the girls how to cook or run a house early, they will never be able to. I sat there as a 20-something woman and leader and thought angrily, I still believe I can master things I didn't master yet. Absolutely. I remember, so I took care of my grandmother for 7 years, and I have cousins that helped me, but she would only let me help her with certain things, and it was the girl things to do. So anything, so like I could take her grocery shopping, I could take her and get her hair done, I could take her and visit, but anything outside the house, so mowing the lawn, she wanted me to call my boy cousins. I'm like, they don't have time to do this. I'm here.
I can mow.
Right. I can mow. It's not like I don't mow my own lawn at home. When it came to taxes and bills, she only wanted to discuss that with the boys. She had very, very set things for people to do. So it was just interesting.
Interesting, because she's female and she's dealing with the taxes and bills.
Right.
She just doesn't want to
introduce
it to
she
another.
didn't. And finally I just said I'm the only one, so we're going to do it. I do my own.
This is how it's going to work.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's changing. I feel like it is for the girls today.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I hope it's better. And that growth mindset when you're thinking about kids with disabilities, and it's in their own time and in their own space, they're going to come to where, like my son was the right age to do Harry Potter when it came out. And guess what? It hit him this year, and he's reading all the books and he's watched all the movies, and he's 17. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay that when he was younger, he didn't like the Harry Potter series. It's in his own time and space. And he needed to get sparked by other novels first, or maybe a little bit easier or a little bit more in his lane.
Absolutely.
And that opened him up to it. And so he spent that time before on those other novels that he liked. And it's really interesting to see how much he's suddenly into Harry Potter after, it's been how long since it was the big thing.
Exactly.
And now it's the big thing for him. So it was in his own time.
And I love that he didn't love them back then. He didn't love it yet, but now he does. So I love using that word. I can't do it yet.
And I don't even know what sparked that. It was, something sparked that for him. Maybe a friend at school wanted to talk and he got sparked. So
Valerie says, growth mindset is having the ability to know you have the power to change your circumstances. We need to believe that we can do new and hard things. And I think that's a great thing to teach our children too.
I think the key word in there, though, new is good, but I think the key word to that whole comment is hard things.
Hard things. We can do hard things.
We can do hard things. We have to teach our children to be able to do hard things. I look at this a lot with my own boys. Even though they're grown, I see them, struggling because they don't want to do hard things. They just want it to be easy. And I'm like, well, you know what? Life isn't easy. And so if we can instill that in them at a young age, that would be so good.
Yeah. In our family, and well before any of these books, we had a saying. We'd say, Hursties never quit. Because my last name is Hurst. And so we would say that a lot. And so they'd get to something and they'd get stuck. And we just smile and say, Hursties never quit. Keep trying.
Love that.
And it was way before
cool.
Let's go back to the children's book, The Little Engine That Could.
And never quitting.
I think I can. Right? I did it.
Yeah. I did it.
It's all about that.
Yeah. And Diana used the word resilience. So teaching our children to be resilient. Right. It's okay to.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to teach.
It is a hard thing.
I think it takes a lot of modeling and years. It's not something that you can just say, be resilient, or Hursties never quit, or whatever saying you have. It's something you have to model yourself and repeat.
Ding, ding, ding.
Over the years.
You just hit on it. It's modeling, right? We have to model this for our kids. I'm trying to think back, and I don't know that my parents modeled that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but we have to be conscious about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because if we're not, what are our kids looking to?
Right. Right.
They're looking at that social media stuff.
Yes.
And that's not the modeling that we want to see
them
have.
I think my parents did model it, and it was a good learning experience for me to watch them, like my mom complete college and go on to teach herself and all that. I think it was a good thing for me. A good female example too.
Yes, absolutely.
So, okay, should we go to the next one?
Yeah.
Do you believe intelligence is something that can change over a lifetime? I'll let you start, educator. Becky.
Thanks a lot.
I have my thoughts, but what do you think?
I think it depends on what we think of as intelligence.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I'm going to frame it that way. Because I think my first thought for intelligence, and if it changes, I think of IQ test.
Right.
Right. And I do think that with our experiences that we experience, my intelligence now is much different from that in high school, much different from that in elementary
Right.
school. But I think we have to think about what we think intelligence is.
Right. Right.
So is it being able to do well on a test? I personally am not a test taker.
Right.
I don't do well on tests. I freak out. Give me all of the homework projects. Give me all the essays to write. Give me anything, but don't give me a test. And certainly don't give me a time test.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Stress.
I just freeze.
That's my daughter with when it's timed, it's over.
Right. So I guess it depends on how we frame intelligence. But I would say, I would say yes.
It can change over time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't dislike IQ tests. I think they show you a strengths and weaknesses.
Absolutely.
And you can take
they have a
those
place.
strengths and you can say, oh, you're really good at visual spatial, so you need more visual things, or you're really good at auditory, so that's going to help you. But I don't believe we have come up with any kind of measurement that really truly measures intelligence. And my mom always said, there's so many types of intelligence that can't be measured yet. There's so many different things. There's street smarts. There's so many things that so many different areas we can be intelligent in that we're just measuring a small portion, I believe. Right. Even with an IQ or with anything that just shows where we are academically, the academic ones especially would just be a snapshot.
Am I the only one, though, that thinks that when you hear the word intelligence, you see IQ tests? Is that just me? Or do you guys?
You were probably exposed to them younger in your career than I was.
Maybe.
Because I wasn't in an education, I was a paralegal, and so I don't think for me it was always just an IQ test. And plus growing up having a mom that always said, there's so many types of intelligence that can't be measured, and talked about all those kinds with us, I think made a difference.
And I think we're moving toward that in education too. And what I would say too is that's why we're really focusing more on the strengths and weaknesses or I would start with strengths too, most importantly. Looking at strengths and weaknesses and seeing our students as, having both and working in those areas where we see weakness and really, giving a lot of praise and compliments for those things they do where we see strengths, where they seem to really shine. That seems to be what I would say.
Well, that's not an easy thing to do, to look at, even at yourself and say, what are my weaknesses? What are my...
Right. Oh, I can look at myself and find my weaknesses. But I also think Valerie had a comment that I believe intelligence changes as we learn and grow. Experiences help our intelligence and understanding grow. And I totally believe that. Now that I am divorced, I've been divorced for 3 years, I've been challenged with a few things that I would normally have had my ex-husband do, right? Had to fix. So I've had to figure out things. And I'm pretty proud of myself that I can do some of those things. And, it's silly things too. I mean, they're not any rocket science things, but it's things that I normally would not have done and I would have asked him to do. Right. So I feel like I am growing, but again, it's the experiences, and I agree with that so much.
Well, and I think that that this research is changing the way education looks at it and the way we track. Like when you're at the very beginning of the book, and I know we're not there right now, but when they were looking at how many cadets would drop out of the Beast, it wasn't lining up with the tests.
Right.
Because they weren't measuring the grit, and they weren't, and like a lot of colleges now are like, ACT has a place, but it's not the most important thing anymore. And they're starting to expand that and look at what is their capacity to learn and grow, because an ACT is not going to show that. An ACT is going to show what they already know, and what they don't know, but it's not going to show that capacity to grow. So I think I love that this research and the growth mindset is starting to change the way we look at children and how they grow and learn.
We're not a test score.
Well, and you can't make up for the life experience. So when you're in grade school, you could not have done anything to have the life experience you have now.
Right.
And everybody's going to develop that.
Right.
So we better.
We better hit.
We've got 5 more minutes to do the last question.
Great. Go ahead.
When does struggle lead to hope, and when does struggle lead to hopelessness? That's a big one.
That's kind of a big one to
last
end on.
Question. It really is. I kind of feel like, first of all, you have to have that growth mindset. But I do feel like you need to see little wins in progress. So if you're doing
Yes.
something and you just hit that wall over and over and over again and you don't make any progress, I think that starts the hopelessness. And we talked about poverty before. If you're in poverty and you can't get past that wall, you're not going to get to that next step.
Right.
So for me, it's the growth mindset, but also you do need some little wins.
Right.
So you feel that. So you start to build that confidence and trust yourself.
That's great. I'm liking some of these comments. I'm giggling. Diana says, intelligence in different circles and circumstances means different things. A monkey's not intelligent in a community of zebras.
Oh, yeah, like a fish trying to climb.
Right.
Elizabeth has said, struggle leads to hope when you have grit. Love that thought.
Yeah, and
yeah. Yes, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And I think, again, I come back to modeling that for our own children, right? So I think that they need to see us struggle with something that's hard, but that we have little wins along the way. Like we can do, parts of it I'm not good at, but, I've got this, so I'm going to keep going so that they can see that, those little things along the way will get you to the end. Will help you get there.
Diana says it's also generosity and openness, the belief that there is enough enough to spare for all. There's enough for me and anyone else who gets knocked down and gets back up again. And I love that whole, that mentality of we're not competing against each other and we're not here to knock each other down. We're here to help each other up. And I don't know, I've been in different classrooms. In some classrooms you can just see everybody's okay with everybody, and someone's wearing headphones over here and someone's doing this and no one's even blinking at it. And other classrooms, they're all sitting exactly the same, and they're if I wear headphones I'm going to stand out. And I love those where it's just very open and, oh, you need this, so you do this, and no one's going to even look at it or blink, and that generosity of that. And if we're not generous to other people and their mistakes in front of our kids, and we talk poorly, our kids are going to learn from that too.
Absolutely.
Diana said, I believe struggle leads to hope when you believe that something good is in the wings for you. And I'm thinking of Angela mentioned that we all should be asking for a helping hand, and that we all need mentors,
and we need to find those people in our corner, right?
Right. But I think you can teach children to be that to each other. And I like that example you gave of a classroom where when you have that growth mindset in place, kids are okay with the struggle that they're each having.
The differences.
Yeah, and differences are okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I like your quote where we said we need to be sure that we never say or do anything to make someone feel hopeless.
Oh, that's so important.
Oh, that's kind of like my high school counselor saying I'd never graduate from any college. That was pretty hopeless.
Well, see, and that's the magic of, I think, the whole grit and growth mindset is that we're learning to not limit people and to let them self-determine and, go to the next grade even if you think they're not ready. That kind of thing.
I didn't call it grit back then. I just called it stubbornness.
But I was going to say that, Becky. I think the thing that stands out to me is that you were so gritty, right? I mean, you get this really negative feedback, and then you decide, and that really is grit to say, I don't believe what you have to say about me. I believe in myself, and I'm gonna show you or show myself I can do what I know I can do.
I love what Heidi said, because I've been thinking the same thing. Heidi says, have you seen those big signs or posters with things your family does? I think I'm going to make one and include some ideas from this book. I was thinking that when we said you can do hard things, that I'm not even going to be fancy because that would take me forever. I'm just going to print it out and tape it to the wall on an 8x11 and just have it around where they study and where we do stuff, so that just to remind us, some of those things. And I really like that.
Earlier, somebody had said a classroom that said something about we're in a classroom. It said we're a mistake making something, and we accept the mistakes basically, and that's good. I've seen that.
She said people with grit take their mistakes very seriously and focus on their mistakes so they can learn from them.
Yeah, and I think the thing to put on our posters too is that idea of never say or do anything to make someone else feel so hopeless. What a great thing to teach our kids, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That would be a great thing.
Say to each other does matter.
Absolutely.
It does matter.
Okay, well, I know it always goes so fast. sometimes I think, oh my gosh, we're not talking enough. And then the time's gone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Next week is our last week. If you'll advance the slides that should say what chapters. So we'll cover chapter part 3, which is the rest of the book. I think you guys will be excited about this. It is, I'm sorry, I'm finding my notes because it's hidden behind my chat. Chapters 10 through 13. So it'll be our last time. And thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.